So welcome, John and Jessica, to Raw and Cook Vegan.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Ron. Thanks, Paul.
Okay.
I thought I heard raw, and I just said
Did.
Ron.
Yeah, raw and cooked vegan. So it's kind of a way to address the two sides of the vegan community, the kind of raw food community and the cooked vegan community.
Yeah,
So and I imagine you guys are pretty much cooked food vegans, right?
yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. But we eat a lot of raw foods too.
Right. Okay, great. And what I first like to do with folks, if you will, is characterize for me a little bit how you were raised and how your family looked at diet and fitness. Was it important? Were they health conscious, or was it kind of standard American diet?
Uh, my family, we were raised standard, meat, potatoes, stuff, lots of frozen food, frozen pizzas and stuff like that. And was it important to eat healthy? There wasn't a thought of what's healthy and what isn't healthy. That was not really in the discussion. It was just if I wanted to eat pizza and have ice cream shakes every night in my life, that was totally cool.
Okay.
It wasn't, the thing is, there wasn't any really that's bad type mentality. I was extremely active though, so I never really had issues with getting fat or anything like that because of that. That there wasn't any pressure either from my parents to exercise or anything like that. Although my dad was very into the fitness world since I was a little boy, I put pressure on myself to get in and stay in really good shape.
Okay. Did you play football in high school, John?
I played freshman and sophomore football, and I was so small that I was looked at as one of the better players, but I was so small that the varsity coach said, "You're too small," and he wouldn't let me on the team.
Oh
Said, "You're
man.
usually good enough, but you're too small," which bummed me out. But looking back, I mean, I was probably, when I was 19 years old, I was only 130 pounds.
Okay.
So I can't imagine when I was a sophomore, I had to be about 100, maybe
Yeah.
110. Small.
All right. All right. All right. And how about you, Jessica? What was your family like when you were growing up? Were they interested in healthy food, or did they know much about healthy diet? What happened for you?
Well, it's interesting because I was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and our family, we had a pretty large family, and they cooked a lot of Southern food.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't really any kind of stress on diet or what's good or what's not. And we even, had parts of our family who were on welfare. So, I was able to kind of taste all of those kinds of foods, but I don't really remember what we really ate until I moved to Boulder, Colorado when I was 8. And then
Okay.
food took on and exercise took on a whole new thing for me. All the food was great. Every restaurant you went into smelled great, and it became much more interesting to me to eat the way that everybody else was eating there, and it was very healthy. And then, of course, we're living in the mountains, and we started being more active. And my dad really got into long distance running, and I got into sports, and it was just a culture thing that
Okay.
actually just changed everything for me.
Gotcha. All right. So that sounds relatively healthy. Maybe you both could. Let's go first back to you, John. Can you say before you made any of these changes in diet, like when you were growing up, did you have any health issues that you could associate with diet, or any chronic issues? Yeah.
Big time. When I was, when I got into the fitness world, I started personal training when I was 16,
Uh huh.
and all the way up until I met Woody Harrelson and started training him in 1990. I ate the typical fitness person bodybuilder diet, lots of milk, whey protein, lots of chicken breast, lots of fish, steak, stuff like that all the time.
Okay.
Think that obviously, we all thought that was the only way. And then when I met Woody Harrelson, I actually tried to get him to drink milk and eat animal products because I thought that's the only way to add muscle. And he looked at me like I was the biggest idiot on the planet. He's like, "I'm a vegan." And I was like, "What's a vegan?" And he explained it to me. And he was real cool with me. about it, and he said, well, John, you really shouldn't be drinking milk or taking any milk products in. That's like the first thing in starting to eat healthier. And this was the first time I started thinking about it. At the time, I was not sick or had any ailments, but he started getting me to think about eating as far as making myself healthier. Yep. And so he said, try this out for 5 days or a week. No milk products at all. No milk, no cheese, no cottage cheese, no ice cream, anything like that. And so I said, yeah, I can do that. And I did that. And by day 2 or 3, I already felt a lot cleaner through my system. And so I said, wow, I'm definitely going to do that from now on. And so I stopped drinking milk and stuff in 1990. It wasn't until I had really bad hand pain in 2000 to 2002, my arthritis started hitting really bad when I was around 37 to 39 years old. And it got so bad that I couldn't train my martial arts that I do, and I did really well at the time, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And so I was having back pain issues and hand pain a lot. And fortunately, a guy named John Mollenhauer called me out of the blue to ask me about one of my inventions. We got to talking, and he said, how's your health? And I talked to him about my hand pain and stuff like that, and he said, I can help you with that. And I had been very skeptical about many things, and so I was like, yeah, sure. But he goes, seriously, it's your nutrition. He goes, I bet you eat the typical way, fitness guy. And I said what I said to you earlier, and he's like, yeah, I thought so. You eat tons of animal products. Anything more than 10% is going to be detrimental to your health and long-term health, current and long-term health. And I said, well, hell, if it's going to help me out, I'll do it, because I had been to a bunch of doctors, and all they said was, you know, you got arthritis, you're closing in on 40 years old, and we can do operations on your hands, which I thought was totally ridiculous. Yep. But that was their alternative for me. And so I listened to John. I started eating all plants, and within about a month and a half, my hand pain was 100% gone.
That is so amazing, you know. And I think that happens for a lot of folks with a lot of different diseases, but that's so cool. And yeah. I want to get into a lot with you on the differences you experienced after you shifted your diet in terms of weightlifting. But let me go over to Jessica again. So Jessica, it sounds like in Boulder you had a pretty healthy-oriented social dynamic there. But was there a point where you gave up animal products, or what's your take on that?
You know, I don't think I ever really put any focus on them. I just basically ate what I liked, and it ended up mostly being plants.
Okay.
I didn't really put a focus on it until, you know, I started training with John and training at the Monkey Bar, and then things started to take a little bit of it was different because I was performing. And I wanted to perform at my best level, and I found out that the food choices made me perform poorly or better. And that started really changing the way that I ate.
Okay, very interesting. And what I'd like to hear, let me digress a little bit here and ask you both, maybe John first, to say in what ways would a paleo primal approach be negative for folks? Like, you know, I'd say, in a sense, you were kind of doing a paleo thing. You were doing no dairy, a lot of meat, and you were doing, I guess, some vegetables and some fruit, and you had this hand pain. So I'm guessing like arthritis, kidney damage. What are some of the other problems that can arise on a paleo primal approach?
Well, the ones you mentioned are the first ones that you will encounter with any diet that's high in animal products. And whether it's a bodybuilder, South Beach, paleo, whatever, I just think a high intake of animal products does a body long-term harm. The biggest thing, I mean, that's one thing, but for myself, I try to be as conscious of the planet as I possibly can. And my argument to anybody is, if you can be just as strong eating all plants as you would be eating animal products, wouldn't you just eat more plants just to save the lives of thousands of animals and to help global warming. I mean, our purpose here, I feel, on the planet is to help each other and to help make this place better. And what easier way can we do that than just transition to eating more plants? I mean, it doesn't have to, you don't have to be 100% raw vegan. If they just transition to eating more plants and less animal products, that's a healthier way. And if they get to 90% plants, 10% animal products, that's a hell of a lot healthier.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that logic. Jesse's 40, I'm 50. We're strong as hell.
Yeah.
There's very few people anywhere, any age, that are as strong as us or are in this level of shape. And we don't kill animals. We focus on eating plants for the good of our health, for the good of not killing animals, and for the good of the planet. That is why we eat so much and just focus on eating plants all the time. We don't see the need, and that's what I really try to stress to people. Long-term health, for sure, eating tons of animal products is not going to be good. Why not transition to eating something that will make you healthier and is something that's livable? Just make a small change.
That's a huge thing, and I'll ask you more about that, Jon. Jessica, can you kind of refer to this? You said, like, you came to Monkey Bar and then you started noticing benefits in performance from kind of letting go of the animal products. So can you describe a little bit about that? What were some of the practical things that happened when you went totally plant?
For sure, Paul, I'll do that. But I wanted to kind of just add into what Jon was saying too. When it comes to any way of eating that has any kind of restriction, I think that is the number one thing that people need to watch out for. Even though, we are 100% plant-based, we chose to be that way. And we dibble-dabbled through stuff to see if this is the way that we want to go. But we made that conscious decision. This is what we want to do.
Okay. And
when you get these diets like paleo that says, no, you cannot eat this, you cannot eat that, you cannot eat that, that's when things start getting a little funny. I mean, automatically you're restricting something and you're making one food worse than the other food, and it just really should, in my personal opinion, it just really shouldn't be that way. It makes it too hard to attain.
And would you say that you would also apply that with veganism? I bet.
Absolutely.
When you guys are working with a lot of folks coming in from the public who are used to a sad diet, you're not going to force them to go raw vegan like Jon was saying right away. You guys are flexible.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
Do you know who Dr. Bishi is? Dr. Fred Bishi?
Yeah, I think I just saw Paul Neeson did an interview with him. Yeah.
His whole point is you got to meet them where they're at and then just try to move them towards eating healthier. But you can't, and we do what we call 60-day fitness challenges all the time. And our entire objective of this is to not say, you're going to do this for 60 days. It's our way. Our whole point is to teach them how to change their lifestyle. So if a person eats, let's even say 50% of their food is from animal products, is it possible for you, John Doe, to transition to eating maybe 70% plants and 30% animal products? And maybe that's where you feel more comfortable. You can do that. You're going to get healthier, and you're going to kill less animals, and you're going to do a greater good for the planet. And it's not going to be just for 60 days. This person can maintain this for years. And then maybe they transition more to 80 or 90%. Maybe they don't. But in either case, it's a live with that they can do. And we do that with our training and our nutrition. And it's proven extremely successful. And Dr. Bishi is the one that started that.
Yeah. Jon, I love how practical that is. And I bet you've seen many examples of folks. It even sounds like maybe this happened a little bit with you, Jessica. It's like you start to see the benefits of reducing the animal intake, and then you're like, hey, if this is working, maybe I should do it a little more. And so,
then, yeah, that's what gets people. It's like, find that thing that works for you. As soon as I started to get rid of the animal products, I picked up power, I picked up speed. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
So I continued to go through that until I found, okay, this is what it is. It's 100% plant-based is what makes me feel optimal.
That's beautiful. Can you guys both say a little bit about, there's this concept within the paleo community which implies that we're not really suited for starch and carbohydrate consumption. And I of course take the opposite position. What's your experience with that? Now, I know that a lot of folks are having like gluten intolerance and stuff like that, but within the folks in society that are capable of digesting carbohydrates with no problem, uh, doesn't that seem to you to be the primary fuel for human beings?
Yes. I believe that one, which I'm sure you agree with, we're not predators. We're prey. We're a scavenger type animal. That the only reason we eat meat, you and Jesse and I would all eat meat if that's the only food that was out there. And if
Right.
if we saw an animal eating meat, then I'd be like, that's a food that animals eat. I'm going to eat that. We're not made for it. I've seen the science. Our digestive system isn't made for it at all. We don't have claws. We don't have fangs. We're not built that way. All other primates on the planet are 95 to 97% plants. So I feel that's the closest thing to us. Then why would we not eat the similar way that they do? And the only reason that they say that it's in our DNA, which I think is completely bogus. I think it's in our DNA to be a scavenger and then to eat other, maybe if it's animal products that are out there. But that's why we might have eaten it for a long time until we got to a position where we learned how to gather foods in a more simplistic manner. But Jesse, if you don't, she wouldn't mind to tell you a little bit about why today so many people are gluten intolerant.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'll go back a little bit too, because Jon was talking about, being able to gather and all this other kind of stuff. And it's also comes to the point when we were able to create fire. And when we're able to create fire, we're able to eat foods that not all animals can eat. And that basically developed us into what we are right now. So I don't think that, restricting something like that we were able to, we've changed, we've developed because we have fire and we can eat this way. So I don't know how to feel about how they speak about eating certain things. I think it's kind of it's quackery.
Well, you're reminding me of some of the stuff Dr. McDougall refers to, is that we've developed these starch enzymes because of our ability to cook starches, and that when civilization, agricultural civilizations began, one of the things that's coincident with that is this development of amylase and other starch enzymes. Yeah.
And I like even Michael Pollan wrote a book recently called Cooked that actually talks about how we started to how fire actually changed human beings, and it's pretty interesting. I mean, I like that he went into that realm of things, but as far as being intolerant, I don't know everything about, scientific stuff, background on this, but as far as being intolerant to some kinds of foods, it's not that particular food. It's what we've already got in our system that will make us intolerant to that food. So let's say a genetically modified organism we've been eating over and over again since they come into the marketplace in 1991. Nobody has ever told us anything anything about that. And that has actually altered us. And so then as soon as we start to eat something that we're used to, it can't digest the same way. It doesn't work the same way because we have an unidentified organism, living in us. The genetically modified stuff is probably my biggest, issue with food, and is one of the main reasons why I wanted to go 100% plant-based. But then I find out that the plants are the most affected by it. And so here we are trying to be, good, and now you're not telling us that you're adding this kind of stuff to all of our corn and soy products,
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's and I applaud the efforts a lot of folks are making. I think what is it that Ocean Robbins has got a group, and they're trying to kind of make some changes to the laws, and I think that's all great.
Yeah.
I guess some folks within companies like Monsanto think they're actually doing something good. They're trying to create genetic strains where they can make larger grain production. But then if we just cut out the animal production, we could easily supply the food to feed the the planet.
Exactly. So, yeah.
But okay. So yeah, there's a lot of huge topics here. Can you guys tell me a little bit about when you made this? So let me come back to you, Jon. you said you were a small guy. You don't look like a small guy now. You look pretty damn strong. Can you, and you say you've been in, sounds like you've been in the fitness industry since you were 16. And so can you kind of walk through me a little bit about your history in fitness and how you came to do the Monkey Bar Gym? And I want to talk a little bit about what you got going on there. You got a really cool program, it looks like. So tell me a little bit about how you got into the fitness movement and then how it progressed for you.
I got into the fitness business basically when I was about 6. My dad invented the beaded jump rope and started the Jump for Heart. And so we were making jump ropes in our backyard and stuff. And then a couple of years after that, he started using tubing, and he made a portable gym with his tubing called the Deluxe Gym.
Uh-huh.
And that was his business when I was a little boy. And so I always would work with the jump rope and work with the tubing, and he'd show me how some professional athletes used it to enhance their jumping and their speed and their strength and stuff. So being a basketball player since I was 3 and playing football since I was about 3 also, I was, for some reason in my DNA, I've been obsessed with running faster and jumping higher since I was as little as I can remember. And so I saw how Olympians were using tubing to jump higher and to run faster. And I saw how basketball players were jumping rope in order to increase their ankle and knee and alignment and stability. And so I started really applying myself to those things. And I did well athletically, but I was so obsessed with playing basketball at the next level and stuff that I didn't really have one around me a lot. So I literally was playing about 8 to 10 hours basketball 7 days a week from the time I was in first grade through I graduated high school.
Wow. And how tall are you, Jon?
I'm 6'2", about 220, 215 right now. But when I was 19 years old, the doctor said I had the body of about a 14-year-old. I had massively stunted my own growth by playing too much basketball. And it wasn't until a friend told me, you got to quit playing so much, let your body rest, and eat a lot more. And so it was at that time when I was entering college that I started to put weight on. I did what everybody else did, and I got very strong, and I put muscle on every year. And so, I mean, that's all been proven, and it worked really well. It's just when I started eating 100% plant-based, where a lot of people that I run into now, pro athletes and stuff, they contact me and ask me this about how do you make the transition without losing strength and power and muscle. And so I've been through it. I learned the hard way. You know, you got to eat plant strong, not plant wrong, is one thing I say all the time. Just because you're eating plant-based doesn't mean you're going to do well. I mean, what is a stereotypical vegetarian from the 60s? What does that picture look like? A hippie, pimply skin maybe, oily hair, and frail. The mindset that we're trying to get across to people now is that plant strong you can be at whatever level athletically that you want and have great health and make a positive impact on people and planet and animals. So
can you talk a little bit about the quality of the diet you're pointing to as a healthy plant-based diet? Would you say that it's got fruits and vegetables, of course, and then cooked grains and legumes, and would you say legumes play a big role, or is that important?
Yeah, being my size, I've talked to Dr. Colin Campbell quite a few times about this, and I have quite a few friends that are the top guys in the nutrition world, and we discuss this very much about how much protein is needed in order to maintain muscle mass and even then gain muscle mass. And being that is the most scary thing for a person transitioning away from animal products to plant, one of the things that I always say is, well, don't go cold turkey. Don't go eating 200 or 300 grams of protein a day even though it's animal products. Don't do that and go cold turkey and all of a sudden just eat romaine lettuce all day. You know, because you will wither away. You're going to get weak. You're going to be tired. And you're going to feel like crap.
Yeah.
That's not the intent. You have to eat plant-strong foods. So when I transition people into it, I'll say, you know, get some protein supplements that are 100% plant-based. If they're raw, even better, you know, like Warrior Food by Health Force Nutritionals. That's A-plus food. Then raw...
what is raw evolution or something?
Raw something. Oh my God.
Raw protein.
Raw protein. It's another one that's a great mix of sprouted proteins that make a very strong plant-based protein powder. And what it does, it puts their mind at ease because what? They're still getting a high amount of protein in their diet. It's plant-based now. And so that puts their mind at ease and allows them to have the confidence up here, because if you lack that and you're constantly looking at yourself thinking, oh my God, am I getting skinnier and weaker? Trust me, you will get skinnier and weaker then if you don't have that mindset first.
Yeah.
So if they maintain that higher protein, even though it is plant, that'll keep the confidence level high for them. They'll continue to train strong and continue to develop to wherever they want to go that way. And that is the key for athletes to maintaining or gaining muscle mass and performance.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I love how you give them that kind of transition room. I imagine that there's probably a slightly, or maybe a greatly different intestinal ecology that evolves when you're eating these different foods. Even let's just say, even if you were comparing two plant-based folks, if somebody's got that high protein stuff you're talking about and somebody else is doing primarily, let's say, carbohydrate, even though it's still healthy, like a grain-based, there's probably a different intestinal ecology for that. So,
yeah, for sure, that transition period, again, similar to what we were talking about before, they have to find their own path, and it's important that it's gradual. Because that's where if they get that bloaty stomach, or if they don't feel good or something like that, because they're transitioning too quickly and their body hasn't had time to adapt,
right,
they're most likely going to want to go back to what they were doing before.
Excellent point.
Yeah, and there's also something where you can get to a point where you can be nutrient full and then continue to overflow the nutrients. And that is I've caught myself doing that some. That's one thing that it's really hard to refine is you can eat way too many nutrients on a 100% plant-based diet. And you can walk around feeling very bloated. And your body can only take so much. And when you start eating plant-based and you get used to it, it's like, what we'll see people who are not plant-based, really, they can eat almost as much plants as they want. They're so nutrient poor.
Yeah.
So now we're filling up nutrient rich. And then you get to this point where you're, all right, now I'm nutrient full. And now I have to kind of wean things back. Just maybe I don't eat as much, you know.
That's a huge point, Jessica, because you know, I've often thought about this. If you compare like a raw piece of fruit or a vegetable to a cooked grain or a cooked piece of meat, the nutrient content is incomparable. I mean, you know, so aside from, you know, of course the grain would be high in carbohydrate, the meat would be high in protein, but that's about it. They don't really compare to fruits and veggies in terms of the whole scale of nutrients.
Right.
Yeah.
So, John, when you made the transition to plant-based, did you lose any weight?
At first, I did because I didn't use my resources around me.
Okay.
I just thought, just eat plants. And my diet was similar to what I said before. I would literally have a romaine lettuce sandwich. With a couple cucumbers on it, and just have that a couple times a day. And all those symptoms hit me. I was fatigued. I lost muscle and stuff like that. But then immediately I started recognizing, because I really try and listen to my body. And I was like, I'm not doing something right here. So the guy that influenced me first, John Allen Mullenhour, I called him back up and I said, John, I'm not doing something right. And he said, you got to still eat strong foods, John. You know, and so he said, if you want to have protein powder and smoothies afterwards, have it. But eat nuts and seeds. Eat tons of greens. Eat beans. And he said, eat very strong foods. And that's the differentiator between people who athletically want to perform at high levels, and people that say, they eat all plants, but they can't perform hardly anything because they're so weak.
Yeah.
And it's because the plant's strong and eating plant vibrant foods, basically. Plant vibrant.
It's interesting, and I think too this plays into why a lot of people fail on diets. They start eating vegetables, and they cannot satisfy themselves calorically on vegetables.
Yeah.
Right.
Veggies are great for the nutrients, like you guys were saying, but you are not going to get calorically satisfied on veggies. So it's either going to be fruits, which are pretty good calorically, or grains, and you've got to have enough of those. Yeah. On this note, do you guys at all track your caloric intake? About how many calories do you guys eat a day?
I don't track anymore.
Okay.
Drives me crazy.
All right.
I did it for a while just to see where my set point was.
Yeah.
Because I've done, there's, as a trainer, many different ways to find what your basal metabolism rate is based on your energy expenditure. And I was guessing mine was around 3,500 calories a day that I needed to eat. And I found that if I ate that way, plant-based, I didn't lose body fat. I maintained it. And so I talked to Colin actually about that. And he was like, we have to think in different terms. Calories are one way to look at it, but your nutrients, you're off the charts with your nutrients, but and that's probably why you're feeling a little full. And I was like, yeah. And he says, then don't force it. And so one of the rules that I've always maintained is when people ask me, how do I get leaner and healthier? I was like, eat only when you're hungry and eat only till satisfied. Drink a ton of water. If you follow those simple rules and eat, obviously, plant strong, you're going to do really well. But at the time, I didn't really know because I was guessing. And I went to my friend. He advised me, and I started eating really looking for plant strong meals like collard greens, sweet potatoes, raw nuts and seeds, and now what Joel Furman says, G-bombs. And so I followed that, and immediately I got all my strength back, and then even more since that point.
I'm not familiar with that term, John. What is a G-bomb? What's Furman talking about?
Yeah, that is one that we tell people all the time. It's an acronym that says for greens, beans, onions, mushrooms, berries, and seeds. Raw nuts and seeds are in the same little category there. But generally, if you eat about 2 pounds of that stuff a day, you're good. And maybe for a bigger guy, maybe 3 pounds of that stuff. But all of them, when put together, the onions, the mushrooms, they help your absorption of all the nutrients, vitamins, and minerals and stuff in those other foods. And it's just a really great acronym to help people know how to select foods for their breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or whatever meals.
And the onions and mushrooms are best raw.
Yeah.
Not cooked.
Okay. Interesting. And have you found either yourselves or any folks when they transition, they end up going a little too heavy on the nuts and seeds, because
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean what we're talking about too, it's like you want to be satisfied. Food is not just, it's an emotional thing. People have so many different kinds of attachments to it. And for us, we want to be satiated. We want to feel that something, that reminds us of something else. And, cucumbers just ain't going to do it. So yeah, you will, overeat those nuts and seeds. That's one thing that is very difficult.
Well, this brings up a whole topic I'd like to hear your thoughts on, which is family and immediate family first, and then the broader societal culture. So I love what you guys are doing is just so fabulous. I mean, you're like integrating these principles with fitness in a way that is just so powerful. But can you say a little bit about what have you run into in terms of immediate family? Like, as you've done this, is there any receptivity, or is it kind of like you guys are turning into vegans? What the hell? And then in the broader society, like in terms of going out to a restaurant and getting the kind of food you want, talk a little bit about that.
Well, change is always difficult, that's for sure. My family still has issues with it. They still, joke about how I eat. My mom even still does that. But I make great dishes and they eat them, and, they can't really say anything after that. But yeah, it's still difficult. Even if they're not eating my food, they're still going to talk about, well, you can't eat anything, or you eat, rocks and dirt and that kind of stuff. And it's difficult.
Yeah.
But they also see that every year I come back and I visit them, that I look younger than I did the year before. They're like,
Yeah.
okay, wait a minute. So what are you eating? Yeah.
In my family, my folks try and eat healthier, and so they'll eat more. Their simplest thing that I just say is just try and eat more vegetables, and they try and do that, and they do a good job of it. They replace, oftentimes instead of having meats with their food, they'll have beans, and that's just another simple transition step. Got my mom away from cow's milk to almond milk and rice milk and stuff like that. Simple steps. I used to try and get them to really go hardcore, but then I realized real quickly that's a recipe for disaster with our members at the gym and also for anybody we're talking to. So little baby steps is much more long-term successful.
That's such a strong point, Jon. Such a great point. Because you first learn about this, you get excited, and you just want to share it with everybody, and you don't want to see people suffer. You know that they don't have to suffer needlessly, and yet you can't force them.
You cannot, yeah. I learned, I think it was John Allen who told me this, but you never yuck somebody's yum.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for us to remember, even though they'll do it to us. But if we want somebody to change, they're going to have to do it on their own. You can't force anybody to do anything. And so I always keep that in mind, too.
That's a great line, Jesse. I like that.
Yeah.
What was it? Sorry about that. So, yeah, just if you could share with us any more illnesses or any improvements that changed as you went plant-based. And then, in addition, folks that you guys have coming to the gym, what kind of illnesses have you seen fade away as they've embraced this approach to life?
Wow. Every basic illness that you've seen, we've experienced working with people and seeing positive change. I just got a letter today on the email that was literally about 6 paragraphs long about how appreciative this one kid is on just meeting us at our last course and taking what we taught at our last CNT course, which is our certified natural training course that we teach on how to train full body, natural, and how to eat plant strong like we do. And he took the information that we gave and went home, and his mom and his aunt were very sick. I can't remember exactly what they were both sick with, but both have been, they have reduced their meds by about 75%. Their doctor said most likely one gosh, I wish I could remember it. One of them was most likely not going to ever be able to return to full health, and she's back to full health now. And that's just from him taking the course, going back home, and influencing his mom to make some subtle changes in her lifestyle by eating a lot more plants. And she's doing amazingly well now, and so is his auntie, I guess. And that's just today. We get those letters all the time of thanks and appreciation.
I've seen mostly just relieving arthritis or getting rid of it completely.
Yeah,
that's one I've seen a lot.
Yep.
Back pain is one I've seen disappear. Depression and oddly enough, asthma.
Asthma, yeah. And I'm sure you guys see a lot of folks losing weight.
Oh yeah, big time.
Don't do that. And maybe overcoming heart disease, high blood pressure.
It would be nice to get some studies like that done, but from what people tell us, these are the basic ones that people have told us. I mean, they're pretty huge, actually.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's life changing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things, well, first let's break here. I want you guys to tell for the audience the name of your gym, the name of any websites you'd like them to know about, the name of any books you'd like that you guys have written or anything like that. Go ahead and give that to us.
Sure. Monkey Bar Gym is the name of our fitness facility. We have about 15 locations around the world. We are the first plant-based gym in the world, and we're the first no machines, no mirrors, no shoes gym in the world as well. And our website is monkeybargym.com. And books that we like, the China Study is for sure probably the first one that we recommend. Anything by Joel Fuhrman, Dr. Joel Fuhrman is superb, and he'll talk about the G-bombs in it. And you can get both of those books at most any Whole Foods or health food store. Thrive by Brendan Brazier is a 100% plant-based book that is more geared towards athletes and people dealing with more stresses in their lives and how you can reverse that through nutrition. And
Dr. Fred Beachy's book.
Fred Beachy's book is amazing. It's very simple, easy read. And what I like about...
Is the title of that book again the title of Dr. Beachy's book?
Healthy Journey. Your Healthy Journey.
Your Healthy Journey, I believe.
Okay.
And what's so awesome about his book is that his whole point, like I said before, is about finding your path. And he gives you all these great options on how to transition to eating healthier. And that book is full of examples and a path for you to follow. And the Thrive book, and his book is for general populations to everybody. Thrive book's more for athletes. The China Study's more for just the facts on why we should eat plants. Right. The Engine 2 diet, that's more of a simplistic introductory into eating plant-based. It's going to have a lot more simple meals, and I think he does a great job with it on showing people how to make really, really simple, tasty meals. So that I like that one a lot. Meat is for Pussies by John Joseph, the lead singer of the Cro-Mags.
Love that title. Love that title.
Yeah. John's pretty hardcore, and his book speaks just like he does in real life. He's intense, but he's adamant about changing people and planet, and that's a good read. It's a lot more fun and more flowing than the other books, and it's more a story. And so all of them, we like to always talk to people and offer all these different books and give the reasonings like what this one's going to offer you, what this one's going to offer. And because it just, we all come into this at different places and times and stuff like that. And certain books fit and certain don't. Forks Over Knife, another one. That's a good book.
Yep. And I also find, too, that some of those books that I'll read, that the recipes in them, if I was just a person who had knew nothing about plant-based and was just experiencing this, they have a lot of ingredients that are very foreign. So there is another book. It's a complete recipe book. It's called Radiant Health, Inner Wealth by Quintessence Chalice. And it's a super easy transition into going plant-based. The foods are recognizable. You can find them at any store, and it's just and they taste great. And it's just an easy way to transition into harder or more difficult recipes, like what's in the books that he mentioned.
All right. One thing I keep noticing, Jessica, is you got beautiful skin. If you don't mind my saying.
Oh, thanks.
I'm wondering if you noticed from the diet, did that have positive effects on your skin?
Oh, yeah, big time. I was looking at a picture of myself when Johnny and I first met about 11 years ago, and my face was very shiny. I'll tell you just a little bit about what I used to eat, which is embarrassing.
Scary.
I was a McDonald's and Taco Bell freak. So I would eat 2 Big Macs, 1 large fry, an apple pie, and a chocolate shake in one sitting. Those were my kinds of meals. Man. Taco Bell was a burrito supreme, 2 double-decker tacos. I remember these because it was just ridiculous how intense, how much I ate. I ate so much. And then I was looking at some pictures, and my face, of course, was round like a freaking volleyball. But
she was 36.5% body fat.
36.5% fat.
Whoa.
And my skin was really oily. It was very shiny.
You're lucky you weren't having coronary issues.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm model thin, that look where, I don't know if you've ever heard that term, where models are actually they don't have a lot of muscle on them. They have way more fat on them, even though they look very thin. I was pretty much like that.
Okay.
So it's always a thin looking person, but yeah, 36% body fat. I couldn't even do 6 knee push-ups without help. That's how weak I was. Okay. Now I'm at 16% body fat. I've gained over 30 pounds of muscle since I've been training there. I continue to gain muscle. A lot of it has, of course, to do with our training, but the way that we eat.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. God, there's so many things I want to tell you. talk to you guys about. If you guys run out of time, tell me. I don't want to. If you guys have got to be anywhere, just let me know. But
Sure.
one thing I'd like you to tell the audience a little bit about is this program you have at the gym. So you don't have any mirrors, you don't have any machines. Can you talk a little bit about those choices? And does that mean that the work that you do there is very body oriented? Could you say it's kind of a gymnastic oriented approach to health?
Yes, it is. When I was a little boy, like I said, my dad introduced me to jumping rope and using tubing. All the movements that I saw the pro athletes doing were full body. They tether themselves to the tubing and run or jump and do tons of different full body movements, like pulling full body rotations with the cable. And so I trained that way, and athletically, I did really great. And so I have always trained that way. And when I was in Los Angeles and working with my clients and celebrities and pro athletes, they all got great results by doing this. So I never was into the isolated world. I delved into it for like a year after I first got certified in 1990. But then I saw through it. I felt like it's a facade, because athletically, I never do anything in isolation. And in real life, we almost never do anything in isolation. So I just said to myself, well, if we don't do anything in isolation, no other animal does anything in isolation, why do we train that way? It's purely for aesthetics. And if it's purely for aesthetics, that means it's purely serving our egos. And do I like a gym that's all about appearance and not performance? No, I don't like that. So I immediately took all my clients, got them out of the gyms, and we went and trained at Venice Beach or Santa Monica Beach every single day. We would run the beach. We'd do body weight stuff on the beach and do all types of movements like that. And they loved it, and I loved it as well. So when in 1997, I decided I was sort of sick of the whole fitness scene back in LA, because it was like what I said earlier. I felt like it was a facade of fitness. It says fitness, but truly it's very unhealthy, because it's about isolation of nutrition and isolation of movement and isolation of each other. I mean, put the headphones on and basically plug into the matrix. And so, yeah. And so I was just like, there's no other choices here. There's either these machine-laden gyms where you basically are zoned in and plugged in, or there's pure yoga studios and there's nothing in between.
Yeah.
So when I moved back to Madison, and once I left LA, I started training on my own, teaching Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the side, and I got a pretty good following of people training Jiu-Jitsu with me and working out with me at the parks on the monkey bars. And so once it hit like a critical mass, I was like, a friend of mine said, man, you need to open your own place, Jon, because there's no gyms like this anywhere. And that's what I did. And I thought, well, this place, if I don't want it to be ego-laden, I'm going to have no mirrors in it. If I want it to be about performance, and all movements that we do are full body. And then I was fortunate enough when I was with the NBA to, because I could jump really high, I could dunk like crazy. And I blew my left knee out, and I couldn't walk very well for like 4 years until I met a guy named Roger Aishas, who showed me Aishas Yoga. I learned how to integrate that into my exercises so that I strengthened physically, muscle-wise, but also I strengthened my alignment as well. So instead of having aches and pains and tightness and stuff, I opened my body up to being healthier that way, but also I opened it up and increasing my performance. And I was like, wow, there's something very cool here that is very unique, and no one's doing it. So that's why I opened the first Monkey Bar Gym in August of 2000. Roger,
one of the things I loved on your site is you have this that you have a circle, and then you've got it divided into 3 sections. And one of those is I guess it's the physical calisthenic work, and then there's the yoga, and I guess the third component, I forget what is the diet. Diet, right?
Nutrition, yeah.
Yeah. So I just love that, and I was going to ask you about the yoga, because I'm sure that enhances your jiu-jitsu, so that I think it's such a great intertwining, because a lot of folks do kind of exclude that, although yoga's gotten more popular now. But I was wondering, it sounded like when I looked at your site that the guy's approach to yoga that you've embraced is a little bit different than the average. And I wonder if you could say a little bit about that.
Sure. When I blew my knee out in about 1993, I went to a bunch of different doctors in LA. No one was really able to help me. And over the process of about 4 years, I wasn't able to run. I got such bad back problems that I couldn't really stand or even sit like we're doing right now. And I was getting really frustrated. And that happened at the same time I was just getting sick of the whole fitness scene. So I said, I'm moving back home. I'm going to invent some products and that I had in my head. And when I went back home, I was fortunate enough to be introduced to a guy named Roger Aishas, the founder of Aishas Yoga. He was very similar to myself in size, athletically, and did sports very similar to myself. And he knew what I had just gone through. And he looked at me and he said, yeah, I can help you out. And he had me do one yoga pose. And what he did was very different than any yoga that I'd ever done, like with Woody or anybody else. Was generally in yoga, you do a pose off of the verbal commands of your yoga instructor. Sometimes they might help the stretch by pulling you or pushing you more into the stretch. But what Roger did is the opposite of that. He did the verbal cues, but then he would come over and instead of helping you, pulling you and stuff like that into a bigger stretch, he would resist you out of collapse. So in my case, I had extreme hip and shoulder tightness. And what he did, he would put me in a position that forced my hip to open and resist my hip. So that
this is brilliant, Jon. This is brilliant. You know, I had a yoga teacher I consider to be a genius, and one of the big principles he was teaching is that there's got to be muscular application while the stretching is done.
Exactly.
Yeah, and go ahead.
And the thing is about this is, and your yoga instructor is on point with that. Yeah. And you think about this: what animal on the planet, besides humans, static stretches?
Exactly.
Not one. They all do active stretching. That's normal. So who the hell thought up static stretching? Why do we do it? Because it's completely abnormal to us. It's not instinctive. And our body's reaction is to fight it.
Now, that's interesting that you say that, because you're not talking about, I think sometimes it was called dynamic stretching. And sometimes I'll see those guys on the football field kind of bouncing, and that doesn't look too healthy.
No.
But it sounds like you're talking about a slow movement that is continuous.
No. You do a yoga pose and you hold the yoga pose. But then, depending on where you have weakness, that's where I would, or Jesse would, or Roger did. He would put his hand and make you work into it. So, for example, if my head's forward and slouched, he might put his hand here and make me extend into it, thus strengthening the weak links. Okay. And thus also opening up those tight links in the body. This, I think, is genius. And when I started doing it, my knee and back felt better by about 70-80% in 1 minute. It took him 1 minute to do the first pose with me, and I freaked out. And then I became a hardcore student of his, and I was fortunate enough to be able to train with him for about 7 years before he passed away.
That's amazing. That's amazing. When you had that knee collapse on you, did they replace it with an artificial knee? Did they restructure it? What did they do?
No. I tore my ACL, but not all the way through. I was just explaining what they were saying, and they said you could have surgery, but there's a possibility of infection and a greater possibility that it will not get better. And so I opted to not have surgery and hopefully just let everything heal on its own. And it got so tight and so much scar tissue that I really was hobbling around for about 4 years until I met Roger. And within a month of meeting Roger, I was playing basketball all day long again, on cement, outside.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
The one thing I heard about Aishas Yoga is that it helps you continue to do what you love.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it does. And then not all yoga is going to allow you to do that, because a lot of it is going into static stretching. And if you love to do anything that involves speed or power, it does not help that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jesse. Yeah, I think if you do the static stretching without activating the musculature, I think it can damage the tendons and ligaments over time.
Yes. That's why martial artists and gymnasts have more off-season surgeries or injuries than any other sport, because they constantly static stretch.
Interesting. Very interesting.
And they cause looseness in the joints.
And they're asked to go,
exactly.
And then they're asked to go do a power movement.
Yeah.
And so exactly.
And that's so cool what you're saying, Jesse, is that this was enhancing your power movements, this kind of yoga.
Absolutely. I mean, if ever, we're always out of alignment. I mean, because we're sitting here right now, we're creating more misalignment. And so if I wanted to go do, like jump to the rim or something like that, or do box jumps, and I'm out of alignment, I'm going to have some issues. But I know how to put myself back into alignment. So if I do this movement and I tweak something, I'm not, oh God, I'm done. I can't do this, which is so frustrating for an athlete. To have to stop training is horrible.
Yeah.
Right.
So now I can go back and I can fix myself and get right back in the same session, get right back and continue to do what I wanted to do. And, that's what's amazing about it.
And the thing that's so amazing about it, I mean, we know to the point that if we get a tweak by something, like some accident that happens, we can reverse it, if not only just within minutes, within an hour or two. And even like with what we see constantly, there's so many super high-paid athletes that when they get injured, they tweak something, they'll immediately static stretch them. They'll take them to the sideline, like Larry Bird, for example, Derrick Rose, Charles Barkley. Those are all fixable
injuries,
like that fixable too. I mean, Larry Bird and Charles Barkley's injuries, super easy to fix. But people do what? They static stretch and they don't know how to fix them.
They have tight hips. And so they go put him into a position that closes the hip even more. That doesn't make sense.
Because they stretch an already long muscle, the hamstring, which is the last thing you want to do. You want to shorten it.
That's brilliant. And the phrase you're making me think of is physician heal thyself. And you guys are doing that with diet and exercise yoga. I love it. It makes me want to ask you, do you ever get frustrated when you know what you know about diet, nutrition, fitness, and then you see a lot of the public being misled by doctors who they just don't understand it?
Every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. I mean, we'll look at commercials on TV about this great cheese. Oh, it's got milk in it, so it's good for you. And then all these drugs that say, you have a sniffle, take this drug, possible side effects, death or kidney failure. and it like, what is wrong with this picture here? It's so horrible. But yet almost every single advertisement's like that.
And just today I had a client who has orthotics, and I said, we're going to get you the hell out of those orthotics. And they wouldn't let her play sports until she went and got them, which is horrible. And the doctor said, here's our orthotic. Now, why does she have pains all over pain in her knees, pain in her hips, pain in her back? She had back surgery because this man put her in orthotics.
Oh, man.
And it blows your mind. She doesn't need them. You don't need them. You just need to activate your foot.
It's all fixable.
I remember I had a yoga student, and she loved running, and she ran like, she's one of these folks who was running a lot of miles, and she ran so much that her toes started to squish together, and her big toes turned,
and everything
curled under, they went under, and so she got surgery, and they cut the tendons to get the toe. And now her feet for the rest of her life, are going to be like that. She still exercises like crazy, but, they basically,
They destroy it. And here's the thing, tennis shoe companies, oh my God, they're horrible. Because even if you think about what even was probably happening to her is that she was wearing a runner's shoe that brought the toes together.
Yeah.
And then here she is like this now, and now she has to go to have surgery because the shoe was wrong.
Right.
This is, go ahead.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead.
This is one of the first things Roger actually taught me. He said, our foot is meant to spread.
Like a paw.
Just like a paw does. When it hits the ground, it's supposed to spread. And he says, shoe companies have it all wrong. The more support and ankle stability and arch support that they put into it, the more likelihood, and studies have been done, the more likelihood you have of injury. And so Roger always said, you want to get a shoe that's slightly loose on your feet so that your feet can spread. And then you go to a more and more minimal shoe until you're finally barefoot, or in a very simple shoe like a Chuck Taylor, or like just some other Vibrams or something, all the different minimal shoes that are out now. But he said, back in the day when everybody wore Chuck Taylors, you didn't see all this many people blow their knees out.
True.
That's amazing.
It's funny, too, because I worked for corporate America for quite a while, and I wore a 9.5 high heel. And after training with Jon and going barefoot for most of it, and even running barefoot, I know it's not sexy, but I have a 10.5 foot. And it's because now I've allowed my foot to just spread and be natural, the way it's supposed to be.
Amen, Jesse. That's such a great point, Yeah. And you wonder, the stiletto heel, it does look sexy, but it's ruining the
it ruins your feet.
Yeah. That's so cool. So in your gym, do you guys have folks exercising barefoot?
Yeah, every night. Now we don't, just like our nutrition, we don't say you have to, and because of the fact that most people aren't ready for it. And we'll tell people in a second, no, in fact, wear your orthotics.
Yeah.
If they're starting with orthotics at our gym, we'll say, okay, now when you go home, maybe you go barefoot around the house.
Yeah.
And you're going to do that for a while. And then we're going to get you into lesser and lesser orthotics. So everything that we do, whether it's the training, the yoga, or the nutrition, all has to be, and this is imperative, that is their path that they're comfortable with, and it's a live with, and it's doable. Because if we force the issue in the training, they're going to hurt themselves. If we force the issue with nutrition, they're going to get sick of it, and they're going to go back to their old way of eating. And in both cases, they're going to get more unhealthy again. And we're trying to get people to feel comfortable and then slowly progress into a healthier and healthier lifestyle.
I love it, Jon. Love it. I want to revisit something you brought up earlier. A lot of these interviews I do, they focus mainly on health, and then people, after they become plant-based, they become a little bit more aware of the ethical aspects of all this. So, and you jumped on that early in the interview, and that was so cool. And maybe you could say a little bit more about that. One of the things I have to say, until I was like in my 20s, I never really thought about it, Yeah. And then I was vegetarian for many years, and I didn't really think I could do the vegan thing. And now finally I'm vegan. So what is it that we're just kind of caught in that thing, eating meat, and then the light goes off, And what can you say about how animals are treated in the animal processing industry?
Yeah. One of the things that I think is that we all love animals, and personally, since I was a very little boy, I've never wanted to harm an animal. I just felt the only choice to be an athlete was you have to eat meat. But even still, for myself, I never liked wearing leather. I would never get leather shoes. I would never wear any products that harmed animals or use any products.
That's interesting, Jon. Was that just something that came up in your own mind, or was that something your parents suggested, or? No,
that was just in my own mind from the time I was a little boy. I've never wanted a product that hurt an animal.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, and I've never since I was a little boy, I didn't like to step on bugs. I'll kill mosquitoes, okay? I hate mosquitoes and flies. Okay. I'll kill those too. I'm not perfect.
I don't think you're going to hell for that, man.
Good. Okay. But I've always been that way, where I don't want to kill animals, and I don't want to support anybody who does make a factory out of killing animals or anything like that, because I look at them and I see a spirit that is full of love and truth, and they're very honest. And no matter what animal it is, I don't understand how people can look at their cat and say, "Oh, my sweet cat," and then look at some other animal that's not that much different than a cat, and think, oh, I can kill that, like a baby pig.
Right.
What makes that animal okay to eat and make your dog not okay to eat?
Right.
No,
right.
I don't get that. So when I've always wanted to not eat animal products, but I always thought I had to until it was forced on me because my hand pain was so bad. And then I said, well, actually, this is good because this will be, I really can't eat animal products anymore. And it made me quite happy. And the ethical part of it was something I've always done and always tried to support because of my love for animals, and always just have a Native American almost mindset of doing things for the future generations. That's always been big in my mind.
The unfortunate thing is that we're so removed from actually what would happen in a slaughterhouse. I think almost everybody should read Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, to really kind of get a grasp on, what actually does happen in these places, because you won't want to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to eat anything. I personally, like Jon was talking about, he sees spirit and stuff like that. And I believe in that. And I don't want to eat anything that was afraid.
Yeah.
I don't want to have that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jesse. I mean, those hormones they're killing it, and all those hormones of fear are in the meat. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I got? Oh yeah, and I was thinking, it's like you're saying, you were going to Taco Bell and you were eating the Big Macs and stuff. And you're right, you don't, and I think that's the way it is for most folks. You go into the grocery store, you buy this nicely packaged sliced stuff. You don't even see that it was this animal with the spirit.
Yeah.
So,
but if I hadn't gone plant-based, I would have never even dove into it.
Yeah.
It never would have even been a thought. Like you said, all the time before your 20s, you probably didn't think about it.
Yeah.
And that's the scary part, is that we got to bring people to, we live in la la land.
Yeah.
We've made things so very comfortable for ourselves, that we're missing out on really what the truth is.
Right. And on this, it might be a good place to say a little bit about ecology. Like, what have you guys picked up along the way in terms of how much more beneficial this approach to living is to the environment?
Oh man. Yeah, that's constant. I mean, we're trying to evolve our lives constantly to being better for ourselves and the planet. That's the way we shop, the way we're trying to go more of our own plants to eat, the way that we shop, always trying to buy local and support our farmers markets locally. And anything that we can do to support and be more conscious, and the food is the simplest thing, I think, for everybody to make that positive change. So that's the one we put a lot of our time and energies into.
But he also many years ago got rid of his car, so he hasn't had a car for like 10 years, and he bikes everywhere, he walks everywhere.
That's awesome, Jon. That's awesome, man.
On that point, I have always loved riding my bike and prefer it because I feel connected to outside.
Yeah.
And I always people always looked at me like I'm crazy when I'm on my bike, especially in the winter, because I'll be riding and it's snowy out or it looks bad out, but I'm smiling because I like being connected to the outdoors and just being outside. And I look at them as I feel almost sorry for them, because you're in a box with 4 TVs all around you and you're just looking at TVs all the time, and you're not connected to the wind, the connected to the ground and stuff like that. And it's just a lot different. And there's something so simple about a bicycle that it's just, that's my meditation. I bike a lot just because I just love being outside. And
that's such a lovely sentiment, Jon. You're feeling sorry for the folks that are stuck in their cars. I love that.
Laughs at them
because she knows. Like when I'll use Jesse's car sometimes, or when we drive together, and I'll drive sometimes. Yeah, people probably want me back on my bike more because on my bike I have so much freedom. Yeah. And when I'm in the car, I feel confined, and I really It's obvious. I'm like that age, and it's not good.
You know, I can relate to that, John. I hate those yellow lines, man. Why do we have to stay on
You guys need to ride together. When I'm with him, I'm like this because there's so many obscenities.
She's like this because I'm like, go, go. What are you waiting for?
All right. Listen, I want to throw out a couple of nutrients that you guys, and just you can both jump in and just tell me what your take on them is. The first being a B12.
Yeah.
Absolutely necessary.
Necessary. Almost
Okay.
everybody needs B12.
Okay. Do you guys do like an oral methylcobalamin supplement?
Well,
We do a
Shots?
it's always a mixture. Yeah.
a B complex, and then we also, if we're feeling like sometimes energy might be a little low, then we'll add in that's extra B12.
Okay. Okay. How about vitamin D?
Yep.
Here for sure in Wisconsin, absolutely.
Yeah.
And anybody needs it basically, but especially us in the north.
Okay. Okay. And have you looked at all into iodine?
I haven't.
No, I haven't heard of that. I mean, I've heard about people talking about it a long time ago, but I haven't heard much on it recently. What's up?
Yeah.
Well, Don Bennett, he's a guy in the raw food movement, and ever since I talked to him, I've kind of been looking at it. He counsels folks that try to do the raw food thing, and he's come up with 3 deficiencies: B12, D, and iodine. So so those are the 3 he kind of checks out. I imagine with you guys, since you guys probably do an occasional shake, and you're not averse to putting some plant-based protein powder with other vitamins and minerals in it, it's probably not at all an issue for you guys. But there are some purists out there who don't want to use that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's probably good for those folks to maybe get a blood test now and then, especially B12. There's also can be a tendency in the natural food movement to want to go totally natural and not use anything modern, and that could, I know some folks can get by without B12 supplementation, and they get tested and they seem to be fine, but there are a lot of folks who are doing this natural thing, never taking B12, never getting it tested, and end up having problems. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, our soil is so depleted. That's where we would get it in the first place anyway. You got to kind of look at your environment and make that judgment that way. Yeah.
Exactly. All right. So this is just such a great, you guys are so uplifting. It's a pleasure chatting with y'all. Let me see if I've missed anything.
Where are you from down south?
I'm from Virginia. Well, I live in Virginia now. I grew up in Northern Virginia, outside of D.C.
Okay, because we hear that.
Y'all gave it away.
We hear the twang.
I lived in Georgia for about 14 years. They probably rubbed off on me a little. You know, in Virginia, some of us say y'all, but it's in the north, Northern Virginia, it kind of fades away a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you say fixin'? I'm fixing to go somewhere.
No, I don't use that one.
I used to live in Tennessee for a while, and that was more fixing and y'all and all stuff.
Oh yeah. So let's see. So you guys are in Wisconsin. Is your gym in Chicago, or your gym's in Wisconsin, or?
We were in Chicago.
Okay.
Somebody else took over the Monkey Bar Gym Chicago, and we are full-time up here in Madison now and just overseeing all the Monkey Bar Gym affiliates all over the world and this location here in Madison.
All right. And since this is kind of a big thing I do you guys have any folks that try to do the raw food thing at your gym? Do you ever run into those folks?
Not really, but we try.
I think occasionally a person might try it, but it's very, very rare.
I think mostly we get the intermittent fasting people. I mean, we get a couple of those guys in there, and that's not really that big of a deal.
No.
But yeah, not many raw food people.
Okay. And you're saying, Jesse, you've tried it a couple times? You've gone a couple?
We did. Well,
I did 80-10-10 for a while.
Oh, when we did Karen's thing.
And then we did Karen out of Chicago. She was one of the first 100% plant-based people in Chicago, and she got us eating raw for about 30 days, I think.
It was intense.
How was that experience?
Well, it was intense. It was the food was delicious, but I also found out that it was it had a lot of raw nuts and seeds.
Coconut oil.
And a lot of coconut oil. And I actually things started to slow down for me.
Yeah.
So I realized that's something I can't digest that as fast or something. It's just, I can't use it up as much. But other than that, it was fine.
Yeah. I think a lot of folks that attempt a raw food diet go down that route. They get a lot of too many fats, and then they fall out of it. So
yeah.
One thing, Jon, if you would, and Jessica too, if whatever you want to throw in on the steroid issue. So like it seems like steroids are pretty prominent in professional competition, although they're not really detected that well apparently. What's been your experience with this, Jon, in gyms throughout the years, and what have you learned in terms of the detrimental effects of steroids and other athletic performance enhancing drugs? What would you say about them?
I personally have never been around, not close friends of any trainers that prescribed them, and I've always just chosen to do everything as natural as possible and focus on the eating. As far as in sports, yeah, they're bad. Biking's horrible, blood doping, steroids, pro football. They don't bust nearly as many guys. Almost every lineman.
Yeah.
And I have had friends that play pro football, and they said, if you're not pretty, and I know this personally, if you're jacked up and you're a pretty big dude, there is a great possibility. There's very few people that are like Tony Gonzalez, for example. He's just a freak of nature who is just built that way. But most guys aren't normally built that way. But the one thing that I did learn training a lot of pro athletes, it's those 1 in a million guys that are built like Tony Gonzalez naturally that make it to the pros. So for sure, I know there's a lot of guys who take steroids in the pros and pro football and basketball. I don't see it at all. But baseball makes me so sick to my stomach with the amount of guys that completely lie and never admit that they took steroids or any type of performance enhancement drugs. It makes me so sick to my stomach. It's incredible. The fact that they just basically slap these guys on the hand for a couple games because they took steroids, or a couple more games if they get busted again. It's so ridiculous how lenient they are and how they allow it, just because those steroid guys put up lots of numbers, home runs and RBIs, and it draws a lot of more people to watching baseball. And so baseball is scared of killing that and nixing all those big home run hitters like the Bonds, McGuire, all those guys that suddenly out of nowhere hit like 15 to 20 more homers than they had ever hit in their whole lives, about 20 to 25 actually. And it's just ridiculous that those guys get away with it. I love the fact, though, that now that the Hall of Fame voting's coming into play, none of those guys are getting into the Hall of Fame because everybody knows they used.
Right.
Yeah. I definitely have issues with it for sure. One of my main issues is, we look at Lance Armstrong, and everybody knows he's just lied his ass off, and nothing is really happening to him. Marion Jones, the only female who admitted it, goes to jail. And I don't understand where that split like that. I don't get that. That doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I do understand, when I look at sports and I look at, athletes are competitive. And I can kind of understand how you can get wrapped up in a world where you want to be that guy. You want to be that girl. So, I do have some empathy. I do understand that. But
if everyone's doing it, you can't compete unless you do it.
Exactly. And so, but I don't understand that little situation that happened and how come nobody's really bringing that up about Marion Jones going to jail and all of these other guys who have come out and lied. And openly lied, and nothing's happening to them. That's
a pretty serious injustice there. Pretty serious.
That's very weird.
I guess that's pretty much everything. Oh, I was curious. I know you don't have machines in your gym. Do you have free weights in your gym?
We'll use kettlebells, D-balls, medicine balls, other people. External objects are just like playing football. You get hit by an external load. So I don't find issue with kettlebells, D-balls, medicine balls, or lifting other people up or anything like that. I think if it's a tool that works, use it to enhance your performance.
Gotcha. And have you, I should have hit this earlier, but have you noticed, like for yourselves personally, and then also for other folks you've worked with, that your digestion and elimination has improved on the plant-based diet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We won't go into that.
We're pretty regular.
Yeah. All right. Man, I could keep you guys all night. I'm so grateful for you taking the time. Love what you're doing. You're an inspiration. If somebody wanted to start a Monkey Bar franchise, can they just call you guys up? How's that work?
Yeah, we're getting a brand new website, and on the new website, we're going to have really simple 6-step program on how people can get connected with the Monkey Bar Gym, whether it's to become a Monkey Bar Gym certified natural trainer, or if it's to actually open up your own Monkey Bar training group in your area or gym. So we'll have that all on the new website. New website should be up in about a month. Otherwise, if they want more information, they can call us at 608-663-7511.
All right. Jon, Jessica, thanks for taking the time. You guys are a pleasure, inspiration. Thank you for everything.
Thanks
a lot, Paul. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.